Hiya 10. So today I thought I would go through how I would plan to answer the assessment question. This is the planning slide that you actually have that you need to fill in, and I'm going to fill it in with you. So to start with, the first thing I said you had to look at was the thesis introduction. If you remember, I told you that the thesis introduction was 3 sentences long. So in my plan I need to think about what those 3 sentences are. So the first sentence is, what is the key word in the question and what does it mean? Well, we've already discussed this in the first lesson of the week. The key word in the question is distance. What does distance actually mean? Well, it means being apart or being away from something or someone. And that can be physically or mentally. So in other words, that can be actually physically not near anybody, or mentally you don't have a good relationship with them. So sentence 2 was, how does it link to the poems that we are going to be looking at? Well, the first poem, the named poem in the question, is Follower. In this poem, Heaney is showing the bad relationship he has with his dad mentally. Causley in Eden Rock is showing physical distance. And then the third sentence is what is trying to be shown in both poems. Well, I think it's looking at the consequences of this physical and mental difference. So if you just pause this recording now, you can do your planning for your thesis introduction. The second paragraph we're going to be doing is just structure paragraph. Now I've left this on because it is a structure one and not language. You do not need to use a quotation, a line reference or a stanza number is good enough. But I need to think about which feature I'm going to use, and I've chosen white space. This is in both poems, and it shows they've thought about the situation a lot. If you pause this recording now, you can do your structure planning. Okay, I'm now going to do my language planning, my first language paragraph. I've chosen a quotation from Follower, which is, I stumbled. For me, stumbling is quite important. He's not being supported. And could that show a mental distance? If he was being supported, it would show that him and his dad were closer. In Eden Rock, I'm using the quotation, they beckon. Now remember, In theory, you should not be looking at the second poem, but as you're doing this at home, I will allow you to use the second poem to get your quotation. Because they are beckoning to him, it's a physical distance. Now this is just my plan, so it doesn't need to be detailed. So if you pause this recording now, you can do your first language paragraph. We're now going to do the second language paragraph. Again, you choose a different quotation from somewhere else in the poem and talk about that too. So, I've chosen from follower, will not go away. He's now talking about his dad. So he's saying his father is the nuisance, the mental problem, the mental distance is getting bigger. In Eden Rock, I'm going to use they are waiting for me. Why aren't his parents helping? Okay, pause this recording now so you can do your second language paragraph. Now, as I told you in the actual lesson, you are not going to do a third language paragraph. That can be left. You do not need that to get the grades that you are all aiming to get. So we're now going to look at the conclusion. The conclusion is when you talk about how the key word in the question has been achieved and which poem is better. So, distance in both poems shows the physical and mental issues within the relationships. In my opinion, follower shows distance better. So pause this recording now so you can write your notes on conclusion. So we've now done our plan, but that obviously isn't everything you do when you're planning. The next thing that you do is your quote explosion. So I'm going to show you how to do a quote explosion now as well. I'm going to focus on language because it's easier to get the language marks. I'm going to use two different colour pens. My green is going to be for Eden Rock, my black is going to be for follower. So I'm just going to draw a little key at the top. And that will just help me remember. So, I'm drawing a little key at the top. I'm going to do follower first because that's the named poem. So in the middle of my quote explosion, I write the quotation that I'm going to be looking at. And as I've just done it in the actual plan, it was I stumbled. So pause this recording now so you can write your quotation in the middle box. Okay. What is happening when the quote is said? Well, the boy is falling over, following his dad. The dad is not helping him. So the second question is what device? Well, the only device I've only got 2 words. I'm going to do this one, stumbled. And what is stumbled? It is a verb. So that is the device present in my quotation. What is the key word to comment on? Well, again, I'm going to write stumbled because I think that is the key word in this quotation. But I could write about I if I wanted to. So the connotations. Remember, connotations are what come to your mind when you think of the key words. So, stumbled. Not quite falling over. I stumble a lot. Not quite falling over. I also think it sounds quite childish. And then the link to context, and this is important in the assessment that you'd write about context as well. So the link to context, Heaney, who wrote the poem, has spoken a lot about the fact he had an awkward relationship with his dad. So that links to everything I have said so far. So now I'm going to pick my green pen and I'm going to do the same for Eden Rock. So my quotation for Eden Rock was beckon to me. What is happening? Well, what is happening? The parents are calling to him, trying to get him to cross the river. So that is what's happening in this quotation. Is there a device? Well, yes. Beckon is a verb as well. So both of them have a verb. So already before I start my paragraph, I have a similarity. What is the key word? Well, the key word I'm using is beckon. And then for connotations, beckon. Just in case you're not sure, when you beckon to someone, it's when you sort of call them with your finger like that. So beckon. They're not physically helping him. Or shouting. It's a hand gesture. And the context of that, Causley, who wrote the poem, has spoken of having patchy memories as his parents died young. So that is my quote explosion for both of the poems. Pause this recording now and do your quote explosion. Okay, so I've done my quote explosion. Now I need to start thinking about writing my actual paragraph. So I'm going to do my paragraph on the grid that I put on the PowerPoint rather than doing it straight into a paragraph form because I think it's easier this way. So what is the point I am making? Okay, so the point I am making, the relationship between Heaney and his father is not strong. Neither is Causley's relationship with his parents. So that is the point I am making. I am saying that in both poems the relationships are not very good. And I've now got to prove that by doing my how. First with the quotation I'm going to use, and then by zooming in on the words. So in this column I'm going to put I stumbled. We know that's the quotation I picked. I'm just going to remind myself that's in follower. And beckon to me from Eden Rock. Pause this recording now so you can get your what column and your first how column filled in. So how? The second one says zoom in on the words or structure feature and talk about it. So I need to use my quote explosion that I did to zoom in. So the first thing I'm going to say is the verb, because that will get me marks for using technical language. The verb stumbled, and remember to put your quotation marks around your quotation. The verb stumbled suggests he isn't actually falling, rather struggling to follow. And a question I'm just going to pose for myself is, why isn't his father helping him? In Eden Rock, remember I constantly have to be talking about both poems. In Eden Rock, the verb, so again I'm getting that technical word in, beckon, quotation marks around it, is strange, as again it suggests the parents aren't actually helping him. So again, pause this recording so you can get the how column filled in. So now we're on to why. Why will get you a lot of the marks in the assessment. So the first one, why has the poet used that word or structure feature? So, Heaney has used stumbling, and I almost forgot putting quotation marks around it, to emphasise the fact he is a child, but also to show he isn't completely helpless. If he was completely helpless, he would have fallen over. Because I've now written about follower, I have to write about Eden Rock to get those marks. So Causley has used beckon, quotation marks around it, to show how far away he physically is from his parents. Perhaps he can't hear them. Maybe that's why they didn't shout, because he's so far away. So pause this recording now to do your first why column. We're now onto the final column. Why does it make us feel a certain pathy, linked to context and a ladder of love if you want to? So, we feel empathy. Now remember, empathy is when we understand how they feel. We feel empathy with Heaney as we have all been small children following people we respect and like. This is an example of storage because it is family love. The fact we know they didn't get on makes the poem sadder. Now what I haven't done, because I've run out of space, I haven't talked about Eden Rock in this final column. So pause the recording now to do your final column, but also make sure you write about Eden Rock. So that is how you do a what, how, why paragraph. I'm not going to do a structure one today. I just wanted you to see how to do the language one and how to do the plan. Make sure when you've done your grid that you save it onto class charts along with the plan for your teacher to mark. You can upload them as a grid or you can write it as a paragraph. It's completely up to you. Good luck.